We are live! Hello, scientists! Welcome to Science with Sophie. I am Sophie, helping you be a brave, smart, curious, funny scientist every day. And today we've got a very special guest. Holly Lambert is going to be joining us to talk about tips for handling fears and phobias. If you are a person with a fear or a phobia, or if you know someone with a fear or a phobia, especially of needles, that's particularly what we're going to be talking about today in reference to the vaccine and how you can work through your own fears to do something that really helps you stay safe and healthy and helps your community do the same. I am thrilled that you are here with me today. Um, we are going to be talking with Holly Lambert. As I said, she is a nurse. She's a child development specialist. She's also a Science with Sophie writer. So if you are a fan of our episode about gum or food or scabs, then give a little extra round of applause to Holly when I introduce her. Beep, beep, beep. Get those clapping hands ready. Before we start, a quick note that I want to say about today's talk. We are going to be talking about needle fears. So if that's a scary topic for you, stick around. No pun intended. But that is our reason for talking today, is to help us deal with those fears and work through them. Now, of course, that being said, if this is not for you today, do not worry. This live stream will be recorded and it'll be here whenever you are ready to come back to it. With that, let's get started. I am thrilled to introduce Holly Lambert.
Hello, scientists. I'm so excited to be here.
It is such a treat to see you. I am in New York and you are in Texas, and we have not seen each other in person for years. And it's so nice to get to see each other however possible.
Same. I know. It's weird. Technology is a beautiful thing. Zoom and live streams. I mean, it brings us closer together, which is good.
Yeah, it's so true. And you know what? We are streaming on Facebook and on YouTube today, which is my first time doing that. Very excited. So if you are watching, when you're watching, let us know where you are tuning in from, because we've got folks all over the globe who are part of our community at Science with Sophie. So put in the chat where you are tuning in from, who you're tuning in with, and how you're feeling today. Let us know. Yeah. So Holly, I will start with a quick bio of you, and then we'll get into what we're doing today. Sound good?
Yeah.
Awesome. Holly is, in addition to being a dear friend of mine, Holly is a lifelong learner and a real lover of learning, I would say, right? And I think she would say, yes. She loves learning so much that she's collected like so many degrees. She has a bachelor's, she has a master's, and then she went on and got her nursing degree. And she's doing all kinds of very cool things that she's been doing in Texas, and then she did in Chicago, which is where we met. And she also, in addition to all of the ways that she's helping folks with the child development side, has also been a comedian and continues to be a comedian. So she's performed at the biggest Chicago theaters, Second City, IO, Laugh Out Loud, Annoyance, all of those wonderful places that I wish I could visit right now because I miss that place. She moved back to her hometown in Amarillo, Texas, recently to complete her nursing degree. And we'll talk all about what that means and how you get a nursing degree and, you know, what that journey is like. So, Holly, hi.
Hello. That summed it up pretty good.
Thanks. What are we?
Degrees.
Yeah. It's a long list.
Yeah.
What are we doing today?
Well, we have a pretty good lineup today. We're going to talk about fears and phobias. Like you said, we're going to focus on needle phobia and touching on vaccines. Why are we hesitant to get them? Why do we get these fears? We'll talk about some tips and tricks to kind of help people through their phobias.
Yeah, awesome. And it's really important right now. We've talked about how we've noticed that is something that families are really thinking about a lot. It's something families always think about, but especially now where kids are finally eligible to get the COVID-19 vaccine. So exciting. And a lot of kids and adults are like, yay. But I'm also really afraid of this and really afraid of needles. And it's actually a big problem for me. So hopefully what we share today will help some of those folks and think about it a little bit differently. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully. I know we've talked about this before that we both have needle phobias, and we'll talk about that a little bit in just a minute. And it's a pretty common fear, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's common and it makes a lot of sense why it's common, so we'll talk about, like, the science of why, and it's pretty natural. Yeah, and then we're also gonna talk about all of those different tips before, during, and after an experience that you might have that you find scary. So, all the way through your journey of dealing with a particular fear, Holly's got ideas for you. Yay.
I'm ready to dive in whenever you are, milady.
Excellent. We've got someone tuning in from Boston. Go Sox. Oh, yes, very nice. Awesome. Um, great. So Holly, will you start by telling us about your background a little bit more in detail? I know you went from early childhood development into nursing. What is your career journey story?
So I have always been interested in kids and families. That was my passion. When I wanted to go to grad school, I wanted to work with kiddos in some capacity. So I got my master's in human development and family studies, and it's a concentration in child development, the degree I got. And I have background in attachment theory, so how caregivers and children attach to one another. I really wanted to work in preschool or something like that. And I ended up doing that after I moved to Chicago. I worked in preschools and then briefly as a behavioral therapist, which I worked with kids with autism spectrum disorder. And we'll talk about behavioral therapy in a little bit, but it's a really cool type of therapy that helps us shape behavior. And it does so through incentivizing and rewarding, but that can be um, a topic that can get confusing. So we'll dive into that a little bit more. So after I worked in Chicago for a number of years, I did comedy while I was there. So I was a multitasker. I have always liked to fill my plate up with everything learning. So I learned about comedy. I wrote and produced and had my own production company there, as you do know. And I got the itch to do something in medicine. I've always wanted to work in medicine. So I sat down with myself and said, okay, I want to work with people and I want to work in the medical field. And nursing was the perfect fit. It ticked all the boxes. I could work with patients in medicine and become an expert in that field. So I went back to nursing school in Texas to be close to my family. And I just graduated last week with my BSN, the hardest degree I've ever gotten. I have many degrees, and nursing was the most challenging and definitely the most rewarding degree. So I just finished up that, and I'm about to go work in the hospital.
Awesome. For those of you who are watching with us live, if you've got questions for Holly, feel free to ask them anytime. I will be certainly asking Holly questions anytime. So just put them in the chat. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can comment and we'll see it all. So my first question for you is why is that nursing degree harder than the other degrees?
I walked in after, getting my master's and doing a thesis. I was like, this will be a cakewalk. This will be so easy. I went in with this conception that I was just going to ace whatever came at me. And I was floored. The first week of nursing school, I have never seen so much information in my life. Like, it's all sorts of new theories coming at you, trying to tie in medications with disease processes, and learning about the disease processes at the same time was super overwhelming. But the great thing is the human body hasn't changed a lot over the years. So in nursing school, you get hammered with the same info in different ways over 2 years. So you become really knowledgeable about the body. But someone from my background coming in with just the more psychosocial mindset, learning about the body and the cellular level was crazy hard.
Yeah.
And now I'm better. I got over that hump real fast because you have to. But it was super overwhelming the amount, just the sheer amount of information you have to know as a nurse. I had no idea. I had no idea. Nurses know so much information.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, right? That, you're with patients every day doing a lot of that hands-on work. You need to be the most knowledgeable. You need to be the expert in the room.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it took 2 years, but now I'm very comfortable with all this information.
Do you have a specialty as a nurse? Is there a certain area that you want to focus in?
So, a BSN degree gives you general knowledge about body systems and all of the body systems, and you learn everything from mental health to child health, pediatric, and OB, maternity health. So they give you a foundation, and then you can specialize.
Mm.
So I'm going into a medical surgical unit when I start my job, and it will be more trauma based. So after you graduate, that's when you start like specializing, depending on where you choose to work.
Uh-huh. So where have you chosen where you're
Yeah. Yeah. So the unit I'm going to be working in does a lot of, it's like it's hard to describe if you have never worked in nursing or hospitals, but what it is it's a step down from the ICU.
Mhm.
So it's not as critical of patients. I'd like to say they're on their way out the door. So we get them after they've come down from ICU, and they'll it's a variety of reasons they come to this floor. A lot of it's trauma, like falls or wounds and that kind of thing. But we also can our catch-all unit, so we'll catch a little bit of everything, and that's what was appealing about it to me, because I want to eventually go back for my nurse prac degree, and I want to see a lot of as much as I can on these floors. So it's one of those types of immersive learning experiences.
Yeah. Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Ooh, that sounds really, really interesting.
It's
So when you were in these units during your degree, you were working in a COVID unit, is that right?
Yeah, I was for my internship. So at the end of I don't know how other programs are, but for my program, we had a clinical internship, and it was about a 10-week uh, internship in a specific unit, and everyone got divvied out to a certain unit, and I got put on the COVID floor, and I was super scared
Yeah.
because at the time uh, it was another surge. We were going through a surge through August and September, so it was a little bit intimidating to go onto that floor. But I went in with the mindset of learning, and I'm so glad I did. It was a learning experience. It was a med surge floor, which is again like a step down from ICU. They're not as critical, but you get patients. COVID patients are interesting because we saw a variety. You see the whole spectrum from very mild cases that end up on in the hospital. Um, People may just need a little bit of oxygen, a little bit of help, some medications. And then we see patients that are needing to be almost transferred to the ICU. So we had that whole spectrum, and you have to be very, very knowledgeable about assessing your patient and knowing when to make the call. Like, when do these people need to go to the ICU? And it was interesting. We got really good at oxygen therapy, a lot of working with professional relationships with like respiratory therapists. And it's a lot of medication management. There's no cure for COVID. So medicines are geared towards reducing symptoms like inflammation of the lungs or getting water off the lungs. But a lot of it was experimental, or more like we're going to throw these medicines at this disease and see which ones can help the most. So that was very interesting being on that unit. A lot of what we don't talk about, a lot of these patients are, at least at my hospital, they can't have that many visitors. So there's a lot of isolation going on. So it turns into very much you have to work with patients' mental health too. It's very isolating. So there's a lot of plates being spun, and a lot of things that you have to be aware of as a nurse on that kind of unit. And it can be very overwhelming and very stressful.
Yeah, I can imagine. And now it seems like we're with Omicron variant experiencing yet another moment. So talk briefly about like what you're seeing in the trends, just to give everybody sort of a state of the union of like where we're at.
Sure. In Texas, at least, and it's going to be different depending on where you are in the world and what your response and vaccination rates are. What we've been seeing at our hospitals in the Panhandle of Texas is most people who are coming into these units are unvaccinated, or the people are partially vaccinated. By and large, I would say about 85% of people at the hospital, or cases in general in the populace, we'll talk about that, are unvaccinated. So when you're getting COVID right now, you probably haven't been vaccinated. And the severity of cases is based on vaccination too. So if you're unvaccinated, you're probably going to get a much more severe case. That doesn't always happen. But if you're vaccinated, you're usually going to have a more mild case, or at least that's the trend we're seeing. Same with deaths. That's a hard topic to talk about, but we're seeing about the same mirror of that statistic. About 85% of total deaths are from unvaccinated folks, and then a very, very small percentage are from vaccinated people, which we need to talk about. A lot of these people, you have to understand too, that are coming in have pre-existing conditions that make them probably more susceptible to catching this disease. So they could be immune compromised, have some sort of existing lung disease like COPD. We see a whole lot. We see a lot of cancer patients, people with heart disease, that kind of thing. So they have some other health problem. That is not always the case, but by and large, that's usually what we're seeing right now.
That makes sense. Yeah. And it's, a tie into our topic today, because we really want to encourage folks to get vaccinated, because we know that that is going to be the best way to protect not only ourselves, but also everybody around us, right? Because we are, even with these new variants, seeing that there's a lot of help that the vaccine gives us in protecting us against getting a bad case, and then spreading it to other people.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Please get vaccinated.
Yes, and boosted and all of that. So if you are watching and you're like, yes, I'm in, except that, I don't know, I'm afraid of those things. That is the subject of today's discussion. So again, ask your questions in the chat as we go. Let's dig into it. First of all, let's define a fear and a phobia, right?
Yep.
Because there's fear, there's anxiety, there's phobia. They're all sort of under the umbrella term of a type of fear, but they're really different.
Yes, definitely. There's different degrees, if you will, of these things, and the umbrella term is definitely a great starting place to kind of look at when we're talking about these.
Yeah. So a fear is, when you have that trepidation about something, that you are afraid of, XYZ, and it's very, very much built into our human bodies, right?
Yeah, definitely innate. So that's where we get that flight or fight response that you may not know why, but it's built in.
Yeah. And you know what? I just realized I actually have a clip from our fear episode that goes into the difference between fear, anxiety, and phobia. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick, because I did prepare it, but this is my first time using this like newer, nice little streaming thing. So let's see if I can find it.
Fingers crossed.
I know. Here we go. Let's see. Could it be somewhere over here? It's not there.
Shall I vamp?
It's not where I thought it was. Hold on. Oh, there it is. I found it. Okay. So I'm going to open it.
Dreading something in the future, like that big test coming up, and you get butterflies in your stomach, that's anxiety. Anxiety is a fear of a possible threat or a nervousness about something uncertain. So you might feel anxious about the first day of school or waiting for the results of a tryout. When that fear and anxiety take up too much energy, I'm fine, I don't even have allergies. I just don't trust that thing. That's a phobia. A phobia is an overwhelming fear of something specific. Some of the most common phobias are heights, enclosed spaces, public speaking, spiders, and snakes. But there are other documented phobias that might surprise you. There's even the fear of fear itself.
There we go.
Yes, that was a great explanation. That was perfect.
I also realized in that episode that there is a little bit about needle phobia and needle fear in there.
Yeah.
Which I think we wrote in, for personal reasons.
Yeah, I think we're really scared of needles.
We're both really, we're dealing with this. So let's talk about our own stories. Holly, do you want to go first? I'm going to make you bigger here. Oh, that made me bigger. Good. It's going great.
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm going to be big. You talk about your story.
That sounds good. You just react really big to it.
I'll just react really big. Okay.
I grew up not really, I remember being young, like 5, and not super scared of needles. But I do remember this really specific event that triggered my fear. And I'm going to call her out. My older sister has the worst fear of needles. I've never seen a child so scared of needles. Even as a 5-year-old, and my sister is 3 years older, I knew something was not quite right. I was like irrationally afraid of this. She would escape the exam rooms, doctor's offices. We'd have to run and grab her. And it came on to me that maybe I should also be. I mean, I looked up to Lacey, she should know what's going on. So I saw this behavior and this fear of needles, and I adopted it. And I was scared of needles throughout my life, even up until nursing school. And I didn't know how to get over it. Literally, my first month of nursing school, we had to practice injections. I was like, this may be my make or break. I may not be able to be a nurse. I cannot, I don't like getting shots, and I don't like seeing people get vaccinated. I hate it. But it was kind of I kept seeing it. I saw my peers do it, and they weren't scared. I talked to them about it. I talked to them that I was scared, and they said, well, maybe the best way to get over it is to do it. Give shots, see it. And you know what? It actually did help. When I got into the hospitals, as a nursing student, you get to give medications, and vaccines are very common. Injections, IV medications. So you have to get over your fear as a nurse really fast, and it's through exposure. I saw it over and over again. So now I'm not afraid of it. It's just another thing. But it took a very long time to get over that fear, and that's normal. That's okay. It can take a minute to get over that kind of fear, but I can say safely that I have conquered that.
Yay!
Tell me about your fear.
Thank you for sharing yours. Yeah, mine's, there are some similarities and some differences in mine. So I don't remember a specific event as a child that made me really go, no, needles, absolutely not. But I do remember being about 6 years old and getting my ears pierced. And I was so excited to get my ears pierced. I had waited for this moment. I had convinced my mom to let me do it. And I remember counting down the hours to go to the mall pagoda and get, my ears pierced. And I distinctly remember the first one went in, and I looked at all the adults around me and I said, you know what? I can just have one, because that was really awful and I don't want to do it again. And knowing that second one was coming, the anticipation that that happens twice was not interesting to me. And then it really didn't get better up through adulthood. I had a really significant needle phobia, especially in high school and college. I remember having to get some tests done in college and being so afraid of getting my blood taken just because of the needle, not because of the blood, but really because of the needle. It was so intense that I had to go back over 2 days to actually get the blood draw because the needle was so stressful to me that my body just was like, no. So I didn't run out of the room the way your sister did. Also I was an adult, but like I felt like I wanted to run out of the room. And I do think I like ended up just sort of being it was impossible to get the to get the needle into my arm. So that was a really, really big hindrance for me. And similar to your story, Holly, my experience changed because it had to for a job that I had. So I worked at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. And before I got that job, my needle phobia was actually a big reason why I decided not to go to medical school. I was determining after college, like medical school or being a performer. And I wanted to do all of it, but that needle phobia and also a knife thing, like blades were scary, scalpels scary, needles scary. So that is a huge part of medical school. And I thought, I don't know if I can do that. Maybe that's not for me. Then fast forward to my job at the Museum of Science and Industry, and I got this really exciting job teaching public lab programs. So developing and teaching these lab experiences to visitors at the museum. One of them I didn't realize when I got the job was leading a cow eyeball dissection. So the public could come in and we would hand them a scalpel and lead them through an eyeball dissection. And it was all extremely regulated and safe. And we went through all of the protocols and everybody, was very responsible. But I learned that I had to teach that program. And I really was like, I don't know if I can do that. I might have to leave, but I really want this job. And I talked to my supervisors about it. I told them about this phobia. I told them about all of the history. And they were like, yes, very compassionate, totally. And it is the job. So you gotta figure it out. And like, we'll help you figure it out. You can do it. And gosh darn it, I watched a couple people do their labs. I exposed myself to it over and over to the point where I got more confident with seeing how people were using the tool, and how people were communicating about safety and how possible it was to keep everybody safe. And that really did change things for me. And then I got to teach a program called Live from the Heart, which is one of my favorite things at the Museum of Science and Industry, where we would video conference with a surgical team as they were performing heart surgery. So talk about going like all the way in the other direction virtually into a surgical environment, where it's nothing but needles and knives. And that the cool factor of it started to override the fear that I had, and that has since really progressed. And then, I've had like a health stuff as an adult that I've needed to get a lot of different like blood draws and pokes and prods for. And that exposure also helped me realize every time it happens, I'm okay at the end. I'm all right afterward, gonna make it. It's gonna be fine. And so every time it's gotten easier and easier.
Yeah, definitely. It's really weird. I at least when I started my journey, I didn't think that I didn't think exposure therapy would work. I was like, that's just not going to work on me. May work in theory, but that
Totally
doesn't work. I'll be the one person, and it does. It does. It's so interesting that if you just dive in, and that's the hardest part. That's the hardest part. It's just starting. Like, where do you begin? And for us, it was out of necessity. It's like you're either gonna do it, or you're just like you're jobless, or you're gotta go be kicked out of school. Like
Right.
there's no way around it. So
Yeah.
you got to make the choice to jump in.
Yeah. Yeah. I am exactly the same. I really thought like everybody else, fine, great, good for you. Me,
Mm,
have you seen me near a needle? Not gonna happen. But it really does have this efficacy. It really does work.
Yeah. And talking about it works. I know a lot of people, or at least my parents, they would, instead of telling us that we were going to go to the doctor for a shot, they're like, we're going to the doctor, but it's just a checkup. Like, you're not going to get, like, we don't know. Like, they would play it off
You're
like,
good.
like we're not sure. I'm like, but and then it just made it worse because
Right.
it wouldn't tell me just what was, I needed the info. I'm very much of that brain. Like, I need to know what's going on, like what happens. And
Yeah.
I just didn't get that info, which kind of fed into that fear, you know?
Sure. And then next time that you're going to the doctor, you're like, "Are we though? Like, is it a checkup? Now I don't know because
Yeah,
last time it was a lie."
yeah. You're liars.
Right. It is really hard to gain that trust once it's broken, you know? So that makes a lot of sense.
And from my parents' perspective, they had only good intentions. They're like, we don't want to scare her even more. But at the
Sure.
time, I don't think behavioral therapy was as like well discussed, like outside of academia, like now we use it all the time. But
Right.
it was just something they didn't think about just doing.
Yeah. So let's talk about the before, like the preparation of before the experience, before that doctor's visit, before the moment where you really just need to deal with this in the moment, you know, all of the preparation you can do. It seems like number one thing would be honesty.
Yeah. Talk to your kiddos. We just talked about it. Kids are so smart, and we need to talk to them on their developmental level. A 5-year-old is not going to take in as much information as an 11-year-old. So we need to talk to them at their level, but always be honest about the experience your kiddo's going through. It builds trust, and it just helps provide that information. So don't lie. Needles can hurt. They hurt. Not everyone has the same pain tolerance as everyone else. So some people, that needle you may not feel it. And for some people who are very sensitive, it may hurt a lot. So that's, uh, you can explain it just how I explained it to your child. I mean, kids get it. They're going to pick up that information. And kids love, what's their favorite thing to ask? Why? Every kid asks why. So tell them why we get vaccines. It's so cool. Vaccines are so cool. We've been doing it for a long time now, folks. It's no surprise. We have been getting vaccines. It's eradicated some diseases. It helps our bodies fight disease. So I think if you approach it like that and tell your kid what you're doing, yes, it hurts, but here's why. And it's so cool what your body does with that medicine. I think it helps.
Yeah. Knowledge is power, right?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
And that's, you want to do it again on their level, and you can gauge that. And that's a whole different discussion on how to talk to kids at their developmental level. But you can explain in simple steps like what you're going to do. Like, hey, next week or next month or whenever, you're going to get your COVID vaccine. That's really cool. And kind of explain what that looks like. We'll go to the doctor's office. We're going to sit in the waiting room. They'll call us back. We're going to talk to a nurse. Nurses are so cool. And then your nurse gets to bring you your vaccine. And most kids that are getting the vaccines, especially right now, they're that 5 to 11-year-old range. They love choices. So a simple way to get kids who are reluctant about something to get on board is to give them a choice. And that's not the choice of would you like the vaccine or not like the vaccine. It's like, where do you want your vaccine? Which arm do you want it in? And I know that seems so simple, but like we were talking exposure therapy, not thinking it would work. It totally works.
Yeah.
Kids love it. They're like, oh, I get to pick my own vaccine site. That is so that is so cool.
Yeah.
And then they get to pick it and they feel in control. And that's a major thing for kids. They want to feel in control of their bodies, and we need to respect that too.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense for any age. Both of those tips, like the why factor and the choice factor, are both things I care about as an adult too, you know, like the coolness of knowing why something happens often makes me less afraid of it. And
Yeah.
then having that choice and that control over a situation, I think we're all feeling right now that when we don't have that control, it feels much harder to deal with than when we do have at least a little bit of choice.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And right now you do get a lot of choice in not only like how you approach it, but you have a lot of choice of what kind of vaccine you're going to get, Pfizer or Moderna. And you can, the facts about that vaccine are really cool. If you, again, a whole nother topic is just like that vaccine, but learning about like the research behind those gives you a lot of tools too. Like you need to do your research on these vaccines for sure. You want to see how did they make them? Where is the research coming up from? They've been doing research on coronavirus vaccines for a very long time, and that's how they were able to roll out so quick. Why it seems so quick, and people were scared because they're like, "Whoa, this was too fast." But they've actually been working on those for quite a while.
Yeah. Truly incredible science happening before our very eyes and
I
ears.
mean, no doubt about it.
Yeah. And if you want to learn more about the vaccine science and a little more of the history, you can check out the vaccine episode that we just put out as part of season 4 and 3. Yes.
Watched it. It's very good.
Thank you. So let's talk about exposure therapy, because that's a phrase that we've talked about a couple of times, a phrase people have heard of, but maybe that phrase even can sound like, whoa, do you mean I have to be around a ton of needles all the time? No, thanks.
Yeah, exactly. It's a kind of a, if you've never heard of it, it's a very foreign concept, but it's really pretty simple. It's a type of behavioral therapy, which is just shaping behaviors. That's all behavioral therapy is. The gist of it is to shape a certain behavior. So when we're talking about exposure therapy, it helps us overcome fears or anxieties by literally having us face those fears. So you're exposing yourself to your fear. And that is, it's such a scary thing. And fears come in and phobias come in a variety of topics. So needle phobia is just one of those many things someone can be afraid of, but exposure therapy can be used for pretty much any type of phobia. And it, like we mentioned, it really works. And usually you can do it if you do the research on it. Say you're a parent out there, you can do this. You don't need to go to someone to get exposure therapy, though you certainly can under the guidance of a counselor or a licensed a professional. You sure can if that is something that you need. But it usually just involves you exposing yourself through a variety of means to your actual fear. For vaccines, for example, if you wanted to help your kiddo get over a phobia, first off, this takes, I think it's worth addressing that can't be done in a day. It takes a minute. So
Right.
if you're planning on using this technique for needle phobia or a different phobia, it can take a few weeks, a few months, a year. It can take a while. And I think that's something to be very upfront and honest about. But you can start at any time. So you can show your kiddos the vaccine video, for example, or videos of people getting vaccines. You can demonstrate on a favorite stuffed animal with a doctor's kit of how you get a vaccine and walk your kiddo through that. You can get an oral syringe, like one of those medicine syringes. Now they're not a real vaccine syringe, but they're close enough for a kid. And kids love to manipulate things and look at them. So those are types of exposure therapy. You're just introducing your kid little by little to their fear.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Now, you just mentioned that it can take some time. So what happens if you're like, we need to go get boosted tomorrow, or we need to go get the vaccine for our, 7-year-old this weekend?
Yeah, so you can definitely try some of these things beforehand. They may not hurt, but they may not be at the point where your kid's 100% ready to go do this thing, which that's okay. You can talk about that with your kiddo. Like, I know this is scary. But there's some things you can do beforehand that we've already talked about. Be open and honest. Explain what will happen. That can alleviate a lot of fear. And then say your kiddo has a real severe anxiety. Call your doctor's office first. Tell them, hey, so and so is it's very terrified to come in. Most nurses and doctors are they're going to help you. They don't want to encourage these fears or reinforce them. So give them a heads up that they're real nervous to come in. Some doctors' offices provide anesthetic ointments, and some doctors and nurses love that, and some don't like it. There's a variety of reasons. For the short term, I think it's okay if you want to use that for your kiddo, if they are really severely anxious. You're going to get shots throughout your life, though. Most people are. And it's you want to get your kid comfortable with that. So in the long term, that may not be the goal. Exposure therapy might be better. But in the short term, sure, it does work. And if that's what you need to do to get that kiddo comfortable with that shot, or yourself, ask, ask. Ice is another one. You can ask or bring your own ice pack in, numb that spot for 5 minutes, and then say, do it.
Yeah. It also sounds like having somebody with you, if you're a kid or an adult, is also maybe helpful sometimes. Like, that makes me think of that story I just shared about being in college and having to go back the next day because it was so stressful. My dad went with me, and it really was helpful just to have him in the room as well, and to be able to talk, with all of us about, like, okay, let's make a plan and figure out how we're going to do this together, and we're going to problem solve it. And just having that support was really, really nice.
Yeah, definitely. Bring a buddy. Have someone distract you while you're doing it. That's perfect. Yes, have someone you love and trust there to help you, and they'll help you after it too. So, and
Right.
we'll talk about that in a minute too.
We will, yes. So let's talk about during now. Like, we are there. It is the moment of truth, the moment where the vaccine's there, the shot is there. It's like here, right? You're in the doctor's office. What are some different tips that we can use in the moment?
Yeah, so there are it's mainly distraction methods at this point. So when you're there, there's nothing, or at least before I was over my phobia, there was nothing scarier than the nurse saying, "I'll be right back with your vaccine." And you're like waiting, and you're like, "Oh no, it's coming." And then they bring it in on this, like, there it is. And then they're like, "We're going to wait a minute and prep you." So during this time, if you're a kiddo, you're going to have your parent there, and they're going to help you. They're going to talk to you. Parents can bring a lot of different tools in their tool belt to help their kid. And distraction, time and time again, is going to be the method you're probably going to use in the moment. Music, talking to your kiddo during it, before and during it. Videos, like, distract them with their favorite TV show at the moment. This is not the time to be a stickler about screen time. Like, use it for sure. There's this really fun technique that I just learned about, and I have not heard about this throughout nursing school, and I'm going to start using it. It's called the cough technique. Had you ever heard about this?
No, tell me.
Okay, so there's the efficacy. It shows some pretty good efficacy, but some studies show that it doesn't work as well, and some studies show that it does. So you have to really go do your research on this.
Mm.
But what they did find in a study that I found was that this cough technique can help reduce the pain you feel during and after an injection.
Hmm.
So what you do is you do a like practice cough, like you cough at a moderate, like I don't even know what that means, a moderate cough. So you cough, and yeah, like a fake cough, and you have your kid practice that. They will love that. They will love practicing to cough. That is hilarious. Please wear your mask during this time while you are practicing. Then, as they're going to do another cough, have them do a big cough. And if you're working with your nurse in your doctor's office, they will maybe know this technique. If not, you'll need to explain it to them. But during that second cough, the injection's given at the same time. So it's a distraction method. And they said during these studies, they're like, we don't know quite the reason. We don't know the reason, like physiologically, what's happening. But kiddos reported that they felt less pain after doing this technique. So I say it's worth a try. I mean, if you're out of methods and your kiddo or you want to try this, I say go for it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's enough evidence that says that some people find it very helpful.
That's really interesting. I'm wondering if I should even try it.
I kind of want to try it the next time I get a shot just to see.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to post the link to the article that you are referencing, Holly.
Please do.
Yeah, because if folks want to take a look, it's really very interesting. And that is the one that, it went, there we go. Everybody got it. Good, cool. It does seem like it's worth a shot. No pun intended. Oh, we can't help it. We can't help ourselves. So many. So immediately after, I think those are some great, I think those are great tips for, in the moment, like we got to get this done by any means necessary, and let's make it as pleasant an experience for everyone as possible. Right. I think those are all tips that kids and adults, I think any age, can use those and try them out. Now, immediately afterward, or even before or during, if you're talking about incentives and the idea of a reward, I know a lot of caregivers talk about like the reward system.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
So there's been a lot of different research over the years. And when I was going through grad school, the hot thing was no rewards. Like don't incentivize behavior. That was it. That was what we were taught in grad school. Well, it's a little bit more complicated than just that. Rewards are a type of, or rewards and punishment are types of operant conditioning, which is really cool. And if you want to go read anything, go look at B.F. Skinner's theory on that. It's really, really neat. But rewards can shape behavior. We've seen that before. You've heard of Pavlov's experiment with the dogs. Like you get you pair something with a stimulus, a reward, and it makes that stimulus, like it makes you want to do that behavior more. So rewards can reinforce desired behaviors. They can absolutely do that. That's true. Should we do that? That's the real question. Like, should we be rewarding our kids? And I think the answer is, I think with certain things, it's okay. If we're rewarding our kids for every behavior or everything, we're not giving them that innate sense of how to build their own morality and their own moral system and code. So I would not say reward every behavior. Like, for example, if they need to pick up their toys, please don't try not to reward that. That is something that we should do, right? But if it's something that is need like vaccines or a fear or phobia, it might be okay to use that kind of reward system. What I would suggest and what I think is don't link those rewards, like have them be food related or anything like that. That can get a little sticky situation, if you will. Like that can be not too good. But if you use rewards, you could utilize something like experiences or small trinkets. We've all used stickers. Doctors' offices use stickers, so you can incentivize that in a way that doesn't like harm your child's behavior, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'll share the article that you sent me about this as well. For
Yeah,
those of you who would like to read it, I'm sharing it in the chat right now.
it's a really cool article.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. And I think what it comes down to sort of circles back to our very first point about honesty and understanding the why. And there's an intrinsic reward, intrinsic meaning from within us, right? An intrinsic reward to knowing why something you're doing is beneficial to you, to your community. That in itself is a reward, and that may sound kind of lofty, but ultimately that's setting up a lifetime of behaviors with that set of ethics, that set of morality, that set of understanding why what you do is important and why it matters.
Yeah,
And
I
that
think
feels pretty good.
yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point. If there, in my experience, while rewards work, you want to use them sparingly. Is probably the best thing because that is
Mhm.
absolutely true. We want to get that innate sense of
Yeah.
accomplishment.
And I love the idea of when it is a time for a reward that it's activity based too, because then not only are you creating a positive link of an experience with this experience, right? You're
Mhm.
also like having fun together,
Of course.
and bonding and spending quality time is never a bad thing.
When
Mhm.
I have younger siblings, and when they would have to go get shots, we often did this kind of thing. And their favorite, you want to use something that they love, so they always wanted to go to the park or something like that. And that, what a great thing you're doing anyway. You're going to go exercise afterwards.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Right. And then it might be a time also to talk about what just happened. And that leads us to our tips for afterward.
Yes,
Look at that segue. Thank
that was a good segue.
you.
Yeah, after so it depends on your kiddo's reaction. Your kid is often looking to you for a reaction. So keep that in mind. If you're going like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" Afterward, they may start crying. That might exacerbate it, but you can validate what they're going through and kind of echo back what you're seeing in your kid. Um, Provide comfort at this time and validate their feelings. Like, I see you're really angry that you got that shot, and that's okay.
Mm.
Having that feeling is okay. Always validate your kiddos' feelings. It's great for their emotional development to understand what they're feeling, especially when they can't quite verbalize it, and to validate it. So you can say, I see you're angry. I understand. It's okay to feel that way. You were really brave. You did it. You conquered that fear. You faced your fear. And then you can provide comfort. Always ask, can I give you a hug? Sometimes they'll need that comfort, and some kiddos right after may need a minute. So respect those boundaries too. But it's really good to avoid phrases that are where kids can't express these things, like stop crying, or you're too big to be crying. Let them feel. And if they, I mean, kids can feel a variety of things after. They may cry, they may have a tantrum. Let them let them validate it, echo what you're seeing. I see you're having a hard time right now, or I see that you took that really well. Like that, echo it, put words to it, and comfort. And that's the best thing you can give your kiddo after.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then they know that they're supported either way in whatever they're experiencing. And that will only help with the next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any experience is valid. Like however they take it, it that's how they feel. That's how their body reacted. And it's best not to put shame to that kind of experience ever. Validate and comfort.
And that's true for all of us.
Heck yeah.
Wow. Kids and adults. Like, a lot of what you just said resonates with me. You know, the number of times that I've benefited from someone saying to me, I see that you're sad and it's okay. It's okay to be upset right now. It's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to be angry, you know, and just that validation or that reminder that it is okay to feel these things and that there's no judgment there is, I think, really healthy for everybody.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Absolutely.
Yeah. And speaking of healthy, look at my segues today. Oh my gosh. One of the things we've talked about at the beginning, and we're circling back to here as we start to wrap up our tips and tricks, is that it's healthy to address these things, and that even being scared is sometimes very healthy, and it can be a very healthy and developmentally appropriate experience to take risks, experience those like scares that help you to develop your own stamina and your own resilience.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exposing yourself to certain things can help you overcome those fears. And I love the article that you shared with me. But we can share that with everyone. But
Yeah.
it's your body knows when it's fearing something, and it's so interesting. And there's this flight or fight response your body naturally does. And when we start to put emotions to our what our body's feeling, it is so powerful because you can start to feel like, oh, I'm tense or my heart's beating really fast. Why? And you can start understanding kind of your body's response to certain stimuli too.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Here, let me share that link for everybody that is now in the chat as well. It's this cool National Geographic article that came out around Halloween, which is very appropriate, that has really stuck with me about why that healthy scare can be very good for all of us, and why we even do that. Why do we like haunted houses? Why do we like scary movies? Why do we like roller coasters? And there's something about the science of, you know, all of the different chemicals that are released, the cortisol, the adrenaline, the endorphins that are released afterward. Lots to talk about there, maybe in a whole other live stream. But these articles have a pretty good rundown of why that works and how it can be super useful for us in forming our own sense of confidence and our own ability to deal with whatever that next scary situation is in our lives, which will never end. We're never, as we grow up, we're not going to experience fewer scary things in the world. So it's
different.
just different. So it's good to get used to how we personally each approach those situations in a way that feels good for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, well, gosh, this is so exciting. Thank you everybody for tuning in. And if you've got more questions for Holly, put them in the chat right now because we got a couple extra minutes. But Holly, I want to thank you so much for sharing these tips and tricks. We've got a lot that we covered, and we've got those articles that we posted as well. So if you are watching this later, make sure you check the comments because there are the articles listed there for you to check out. Thank you for sharing your stories, Holly, and your pointers.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great. I wish I had have had something like this when I was growing up, right? It would have helped me so much to actually see people also talking about a really common fear.
Yeah, same. My gosh, same. And I know for a lot of the parents and caregivers out there, like, we all have the good intentions. We have the best of intentions. It's just sometimes we don't even know what to do. And sometimes we just need some more resources. So I hope that this was a helpful resource for folks today, whether you are watching and you are a parent or caregiver, if you are a kid or an adult with one of these fears, if you know someone with one of these fears, if you're a nurse like Holly and have patients come in and have those fears. I'm sure it happens like all the time. Yeah. Yeah. If you are watching this afterward and you have a question, please still put them in the comments because I read all of the questions and comments personally and will get you an answer No matter what, I will find you and we will find out together. And I hope that this was helpful for you. If you think so, please like and subscribe and share. If you think that these tips would be helpful for someone that you know, please share this with them. We would love for them to check it out. Oh my gosh, thanks everybody who's commenting. Like, it's so great to see you here. If you want to learn more about fear, vaccine science, and other cool stuff that our bodies do, check out our brand new vaccine page. Hold on, wait for it. Check it out. Hold on. I'm pulling something up and it's going to be cool. There it is. Check out our vaccine page. Oh, we just launched this page on Science with Sophie, and I am so excited about it because we launched it to be a resource for you as we navigate this wild world and into 2022. So on there's a video with my own vaccine story. We referenced it a little bit earlier in today's live stream. There are also the other episodes of Fear and Tears and Snot. They're all right there. Boom, boom, boom. As well as brand new lesson plans that are science, English language arts, and social studies, all with a focus on social justice surrounding vaccines. And they're all free. And you just download them and then use them and then let me know how they go. You can send me an email at hello@sciencewithsophie or just like tweet me or at me. Let me know how it is because I really want to see you doing some science around these vaccines. Wonderful. Holly,
Yes.
anything else you want to add? Any final words of advice?
Just, try use these tips and tricks. Encourage your family, yourself to get vaccinated and get boosted. It's really good, not only for you, but for your community and the science behind it. If you have any questions, like Sophie said, you are free to reach out to her, to me. I mean, I'm more than willing to walk anyone through why it's awesome to get a vaccine.
Thank you, Holly. Me too. With that, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful holiday break. Maybe use the opportunity of the days off of school to get vaccinated, get boosted, and we will see you in 2022. Thanks, everyone. Bye, scientists.
Goodbye.